according to God, the white man is the devil.
See, I've been in here for a little minute. You know what I'm saying? And I see niggas, they like to talk a lot. They like to claim leadership. They like to claim this and that. You know what I'm saying? They like to be above what they really is and have authority. But they don't really need that authority. They don't really know what to do with that leadership. You understand? You hold hands with this white man. Need to stop it. Ask you to give a damn what you talk about. Don't give a fuck what you believe, nigga. Gotta stand up and serve my God. We don't pray on our knees, nigga. Yeah. Everybody ain't with all that peace talk. Everybody ain't with all that. Let bygone be. Boy, ask you to stop it. Ask you to prop. It's about to get serious. When they hit us with dope and kill us with crack, where the fuck with your leaders? I'm curious. He cashed out on your blood, traded you in and bought a new biz. Ask you the prophets, I tell you the scheme. If you don't wake up, you gon' die in your dreams. I tell you once, won't tell you no more. I swear these crackers try to kill us slow. Just spoke to a nigga and fed he up for parole. Because of the COVID, it feel like the hoes in this world that don't go together. Know it's gold in the ghetto. I'm in the city blazing with my niggas. Just told the devil the score never settled. Yeah, see the prophets. I'm tired of these niggas keep talking about, you know, you respect my religion, I respect your religion. Boy, your ass need to stop it, ass see the prophets. You know, like we all come together. Cause you know what I'm saying, they say God so loved the world. God so loved the world and know. Boy, your ass need to stop it, ass see the prophets. Don't give a damn what you talk about. Don't give a fuck what you believe, nigga. Gotta stand up and serve my God. We don't pray on our knees, nigga. Yeah. Hey, Jeremiah, we don't pray on our knees, nigga. Gotta stand up. You know what I'm saying? Boy, your ass need to stop it, ass shit. Oh, I'm with step, I'm solid for show. For the fake niggas, stay silent, I got it, let's go, let's go. I ain't taking no loss, ain't no token when we got the flow. Ain't no peace, just play with your own. I'ma be loyal to the right arm. Tell him we can't keep it slave. And I can never let bygone be bygone. Got your baby mother on high, got your baby pass through the fire. Ain't she the prophets, that baby soul belong to the Lord. How dare you abort it? Therefore will failure, bitch, I can afford it. I prepare slaughter, you bring me my water. Push your leaders weak, let them lies slip through their teeth. Their ass need to stop it, ass see the prophets.
That's just the reality, Christians. I'm sorry to hurt your feelings. I know your pastor lied to you every Sunday for 30 years, but that's what the church is for, lying. That's why they exist, to lie the money out of your pockets.
Boy, your ass need to stop it, ass see the prophets. Give a damn what you talk about. Don't give a fuck what you believe, nigga. Gotta stand up to serve my God. We don't pray on our knees, nigga. We don't pray on our knees, nigga. Gotta stand up to serve my God. We don't pray on our knees, nigga.
Hey, what's going on, Canada? Shalom, shalom. Yahbashim Yashabrakatham. All the brothers, Yahweh Shamar Lathab, Bashim Yashad, all the sisters. I'm Priest and Officer YAHANNA, the Commanding General YAHANNA. And we are the I.S.U.P.K, which started out at 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York. Okay, today is Monday night history class. We're going to be getting into today about the history of RCMP, a little bit about the history of the RCMP being created here in Canada, and then just speaking on some of the disgusting things that the RCMP has done under the guise of being a trustable source, a trustable people, a people that you can rely on or look up to. They damn near teach in this empire, in this country of Canada, that the police and the RCMP are good people. They're people that you can look up to. They're respectable, honorable people that are here on this earth, and they can be a safe place for your kids, a safe place for your family. When we know, in fact, over the last couple of years doing classes here in Canada, the RCMP have done so many disgusting things. Many things, damn near 90% of the things that they've done, they go unanswered for. They go unpunished for. Having stupid things like, different police officers being given time off work. You know what I mean? Time off work for what they call a quote-unquote mistake or lapse in judgment, while they're on the job, they're given time off work. You understand? And that's their reward for doing something, or that's their punishment, as the government would love to have you believe, for doing some of the things that they do. You understand? But we know, over the course of the last couple of years, doing classes in Canada and really uncovering the truth behind many things that the police, the RCMP, the Canadian government, and Canadians themselves are doing. They support, understand, a lot of backwards way of thinking in this society. You understand? And these are the things we're going to continue to bring out. Okay? The Bible said, or prophesied, that there would be a time when good would be called evil and evil would be called good. And you're seeing in Canada, you're seeing a time where there's so many evil things that they would like to convince you are good. You understand? They want you to, they'd have you believe that the LGBTQ community is something good and respectable and should be respected and left alone for their way of life. Meanwhile, these people are dying of HIV and AIDS. You got grown men taking painkillers so that they can, painkillers every day just so that they can bear the pain of their sexual deviancies that they're doing. Wearing adult diapers because they can't keep in, you understand, the different things that come out of their body because of the different things that they're engaged in sexually. And it's just a foul way of life. It's a foul way of living. You understand? And these things are just destroying people and killing people. The LGBTQ community is something that the Most High is against. The Most High is against it because he doesn't want us to die. He wants us to live. He wants us to have a good life. He doesn't want us to be unalived at a young age because, we engage in same-sex relationships. These are things that are wicked. Another thing that is wicked is this RCMP force. Understand? And the way that the police govern themselves and execute judgments, the cowardice of the people that are holding these badges. You understand? The pride of these people holding these badges, thinking they can execute these different judgments based off of the title that they've been given, and they have been given the authority to do so. They've been given the authority to do so, and they've done many disgusting things, like shooting and unaliving a young woman in her head because she has a mental illness, not having the proper training or understanding on how to deal with a woman who's mentally ill. And because their life, they quote unquote claim to feel threatened, you understand, or maybe they're uncomfortable, whatever it may be on their job, and they decide to pull the trigger. They decide that a woman's life has no value, you understand, because they feel lightly threatened. But we're going to get into an article. All right, about to share an article. And this article is, giving some of the history on the RCMP. All right. Some of the history on the RCMP here in Canada. It's going to speak about some of the things that they've done. Some of the things they've done in the past, some of the things they've done recently. Okay, we're going to get into all that. Okay, so this article is from the National RCMP Research Council, or RCMP Heritage. Okay, it was written by, published by somebody named Sean Carlton. And this is some of his research and some of his findings. and some of the things that he says. Okay, it says, Salaki, let me zoom in a little bit. Okay, we'll read through a little bit of this article. We'll share a couple videos. And show some of the activity of the RCMP, some of the things that they do in the name of being a police officer, being a part of the Royal Mounted Police, the RCMP. It says many Canadians have a hard time believing that Canada's federal police force, the RCMP, is a paramilitary force with a long history of violence. Now, that first statement off the jump is something interesting because nobody, if I were to ask any Canadian, I damn near guarantee 95% of them would not look at the RCMP as being some paramilitary force. But this author is going to go on to explain why he believes they are. Not only believes they are, but show clearly the amount of power and the type of training that they execute amongst some of the people here in Canada. Okay, so he says, it's hard to believe that the RCMP is a paramilitary force with a long history of violence. It says images of RCMP officers, some dressed in camel gear and armed with automatic rifles, raiding and arresting indigenous land defenders in Wet'suwet'en territory in 2019 and 2020 clashed with the popular mythology, right? So basically what he's saying is there's a time where, this was a couple of years ago, this is about 4 years ago, where the RCMP is going to one of these indigenous people's land right claims or fights or battles or whatever you want to call it. And these police officers are showing up in camel gear. They're showing up in camel gear with full-out rifles. All right. It says the stark contrast between the galloping Mounties of the musical ride and the militarized police force sent in to be the music for an energy company has led some Canadians to view recent RCMP raids of indigenous land defenders as anomalies. So as the RCMP continues to carry themselves the way that they do, here in 2024, some people are starting to wonder, where is the police getting the training to do and execute some of the things they're doing here in Canada? There was a raid that happened, I believe that was out near British Columbia, and the way the police were moving, people are looking at them like, this doesn't look like your everyday police officer. You got 1,000,001 cartoons that your kids are watching growing up, that we've watched growing up, and the police are always presented as these people with this certain type of badge and certain type of uniform. And it's their job to go around catching bad guys and putting them in prison. Driving around in their police cars, flashing that red and blue, putting people in the back of their police cars, handcuffing them and bringing them to jail. Bringing justice to a society. That's the image that most people have of police officers. But back when these raids were happening in 2020, you got some people starting to question, who are these people that are carrying these badges? Because these people don't just have this small little handgun and handcuffs, a little flashlight on the baton. They're in full-out camel gear, military gear, and they got these long AR-15s and, you know, semi-automatic rifles that they're carrying, and they're full out trained to use them. And as you see this, you got to kind of ask yourself, okay, is this the police that I grew up learning about? These people are just out here catching somebody who's stealing from a mall. You know what I mean? Maybe they're out on the street just beating somebody up who's innocent. Police come in and save the day. Or are these people something different? Right? The article goes on to read that history, however, proves otherwise. The RCMP's ongoing operation in Wet'suwet'en territory is part of a pattern of the force being used by the state to suppress indigenous resistance and clear the way for continued capitalist accumulation by colonial dispossession. In fact, the Mounties have been serving and protecting Canada's settler capitalist status quo since its creation in 1873. Now, what people in Canada, specifically Blacks, Hispanics, and Indigenous people in Canada, don't understand is that there is a spirit. There is a spirit behind our oppressor. There is a spirit behind these European colonizers, and it's in the Bible. Okay? If you go to the book of Obadiah, let me pull it up really quick. And this is part of the reason why the I.S.U.P.K is so important, is because we have the truth of the Bible. We know, we understand the Bible. And when you go to the book of Obadiah, verse 4, Obadiah is a prophet who had a vision concerning Edom. Okay, a vision concerning Edom. Who is Edom? When you read throughout the Bible, you can go back to the book of Genesis. You're going to see there's 18 different nations that the Bible lists. Okay, there's different nations that the Bible speaks about. Speaks about the Canaanites, the Amorites, the Cushites, the Perizzites, the Jebusites, right? And these are just different people, different men who were descendants of Noah and his 3 sons, okay, Ham, Shem, and Japheth. And there was a time where the Most High wiped out all the earth, and then through this man and his sons and their wives, they repopulated the earth. And as they repopulated the earth, you had different nations that were formed. Okay? You got people like, who's that called again? Right? You have the sons of Ammon, who are your so-called Japanese people today, right? You have your sons of Moab, sons and daughters of Moab, who would be the so-called Chinese today, right? You have the descendants of Israel, who would be the Blacks, Hispanics, and Indigenous people, the people who identify as being Blacks, Hispanics, and Indigenous people. They're a descendant of a man named Israel. Then you have the sons of Edom. And the sons of Edom are the people who identify as being Dutch, Polish, Russian, Greek, Roman. Okay? Edom is the progenitor of who we call today the so-called white man, Caucasian man, the European man. His biblical name is Edom. And unless you go throughout history and archaeology, right? And read through this Bible, which has so many prophetic natures to it and has so much history to it. You're not going to understand where people come from, who they are, and who they descend from. You understand? And that's what's in this Bible. You understand? We have the Ishmaelites, who are the so-called East Indians, right? You have people who are Hamitic, who people are identify as being African. Those are your Canaanites and your Egyptians and your Libyans and all those different people out in Africa. Okay, there's many different nations throughout the Bible, and everybody descends from somebody. Okay, everybody has a biblical nation, and most people on the earth, they identify and they recognize and they represent their nation. You go back in a time of history, you see the Romans, they proudly identified as being Idumeans. Okay, who is Idumea? That is a nation of Edom. Okay, Idumea are the Edomites in the Bible. And there's a time where Romans proudly represented themselves as being Idumeans because that is who they are. Okay, and so as we're reading through the prophet Obadiah, you go to Obadiah, he gives a vision concerning Edom, the nation of Esau. Okay. And what he says in verse 4, he says, or if you go down to verse 5, it says, if thieves came to thee, if robbers by night, how art thou cut off? Would they not have stolen till they had enough? If the grape gatherers came to thee, would they not leave some grapes? Now, this is what normal people would do. Okay? A normal person, you know what I mean? They'd see a vineyard of grapes and they would take some until they had enough. You know what I mean? I remember being a kid. We used to walk from playing basketball, and there was this one house we would pass where they had an apple tree. And the apple tree overflowed into the street. So as we were walking down the sidewalk, we would pick apples and just eat apples when we were done playing basketball. But as we picked apples, none of us ever took more than 1 or 2 apples. It was damn near it was so consistent in what we did. You know what I mean? It was damn near a science. It was like we were done playing basketball. We're going to walk by this house. Everybody's going to grab an apple. You know what I mean? 3 or 4 of us, we would each grab 1 apple. And then we would go about our business. We never sat there and grabbed every single apple off that apple tree. You know what I mean? None of us ever, ran in there, shook the tree, climbed up, or shook branches off and things like that. We would just walk by, and if there was an apple on the tree, we would grab the apple and eat an apple. You know what I mean? Sometimes there was no apples. Sometimes there was apples, but we didn't need any, so we would just keep walking. The apples were just left alone. You understand? That's how we carried ourselves as kids. You know what I mean? Young boys, young teenagers. But Esau would see an apple. The nation of Edom, the nation of Esau, they would see that apple tree and they would clear it. They would take every single apple off that tree. They'd probably stick it in a basket and try to find a way to sell it. That's the spirit of Esau. That's what Obadiah is speaking about in verse 5. And so one of the best ways to understand these oppressors, the people that are oppressing us here in Canada, to understand them is just to understand that they're greedy. Understand that they're an extremely greedy people. And you see that in their lifestyles. You see that in their morals, you know, how they raise up their families, how they try to teach people in the nation of Canada, the country of Canada, to live, that everything is about money. Everything is about working hard and making money, retiring at a certain age so that you can go out and spend all your money. You know what I mean? The country of Canada and the people that are ruling this place would have you believe that money is the meaning of life, because that's the spirit of those people. They believe money is what life is about. They believe that taking is what life is about. They are going to take, and they are never going to be full. They are never going to have enough. That's why they continue to do things like oppress the indigenous people here in Canada and continue to take land from them, continue to take more from them. And you look at some of the statistics in Canada, I think it's like 80% of the country is uninhabited. 80% of the country is uninhabited, probably more. Canada is one of the largest land masses throughout the entire earth. And it has an extremely low population. So why does the Canadian government continue to take more land from indigenous people? They had treaties back in the 1800s where they signed and said, here's your land, we'll leave you alone. Here's our land. We're already here, we've already settled here. There's enough land here for everybody. Let's just live in different parts of the country and leave each other alone. You understand? And this is after years of colonization. This is after years of enslaving indigenous people, forced indentured servitude of indigenous and blacks and Hispanics here in Canada. And after these years of us building up Canada's country, then they say, here, go live in these parts of the land. Here's a plot of land, we'll give it to you. Just go stay over there. And many of that had to do with the different wars that indigenous people continued to win here in Canada. And the colonizers that came over here were tired of fighting, tired of being defeated. So you have these different agreements and treaties that pop up to where we just say, let's live in different parts of the land. And since that time, the Canadian government has not honored any of their promises. The British, the French, neither of those empires have honored any of the treaties that they've made here in Canada. You have a treaty from the Queen saying that the British or the Queen claiming that they promised to defend the different land claims that indigenous people make here in Canada. That if anybody dares or tries to break these treaties, that the Queen will go to war and the Queen will defend indigenous people. And so as you see all the different land wars that have taken place in Canada, I haven't seen not one time anybody step in to help them. Not one time. And so it's important to understand who Esau is. It's important to understand who the nation of Edomites are. The I.S.U.P.K, we know who they are. We understand their spirit. We understand that they are going to keep taking and they are never going to be full. They're never going to be full. What does that mean for indigenous people? It means that the government of Canada, over time, they will eventually take all of Canada. They will eventually take you off all parts of the land if they see it as benefiting them in any kind of way. If they see a part of land where they want to use it to set up some kind of military base, they will do it. They have done that historically. That was over in southern Ontario where they saw a plot of land and they wanted to do some military operations. In the blink of an eye, they decided that this land is ours. You know, they have different waste management companies and they decide that, hey, we want to build a landfill here. We can dump garbage. They're going to take native land. If the oil company finds oil, you know, they find some new oil and they want to run a pipeline through it, Canadian government will take that land because they are greedy. They will never stop so long as it benefits them. This story that we're going to see today, they had some farmer come up from the States and bought land over near British Columbia. He bought land and he wanted his cattle to continue grazing the fields. And as he went out and his cattle were grazing more of the fields, he wanted to expand his field a little larger. Well, once he started expanding inside of a place where indigenous peoples were carrying their ceremonies, their sun dances, that's when the indigenous people realized, wait a minute, how did you get on this land? How did you get on this land that was ours? And as they continue to investigate it more, they're like, wait a minute, how did you even get any of this farmland? Where did you come from? And as they investigated more and more, they're like, none of this land was procured lawfully. None of it was procured legally. It was just taken. That is what Esau does. It's important to understand that. Right? So let's keep going. It says, the birth of the RCMP. It is important to understand the RCMP's role as a colonial paramilitary force in its historical context, drawing on examples of other colonial paramilitary forces in existence around the British Empire in the mid to late 19th century, such as the Royal Irish, which was created in 1822. Canada's first Prime Minister, John A. Macdonald, created the RCMP's predecessor, which it was called the Northwest Mounted Police. And that was created in 1873. It says he wanted to use the new force to help extend Canada's colonial control over Indigenous territories in what would become Western Canada and clear the way for settlement. At the time, the country was only 6 years old. The settler population was not very large, and Canada did not have an independent military. So now we're seeing the creation of the RCMP right here. We're seeing the creation of the police force here in Canada, and that was created around 1873. Okay, 1873, when John A. Macdonald becomes the first Prime Minister of Canada. So you have Canada establishing themselves as a government. They're starting to establish their government as they always do after they colonize a country. As they begin to create a country, they start implementing their government. So you have John A. Macdonald being the first Prime Minister. And what does he do after 6 years of Canada becoming a nation? Canada becoming under British rule? They create a police force. Okay, they create a police force, and this police force was created to help expand Western parts in Canada, help expand British rule over the Western parts of Canada. That's what the first uses of this police were used for. It was to further oppress and destroy indigenous people here in Canada. And what was the police created for in the States? It was the same thing. The police were going around catching slaves. They were used to help oppress the children of God. They were used to oppress Blacks, Hispanics, and indigenous people. That's what the police force was used to do. It was used for somebody's personal gain, which was the same thing here in Canada. It was used for somebody's personal gain. So now as we have all these different cartoons playing for our kids, all these different cartoons that we watch growing up, thinking that the police are just going around catching the bad guys, in their inception, in their birth, they were used for somebody's agenda. Its inception and its birth, it was used for a specific reason. It wasn't used to go catch the thief that was stealing from the old lady. This police were used for a very specific reason. And that's why under John A. MacDonald it was created. Right, let's keep going. It says, then in the wake of the Cypress Hills, or let me go up a bit, it says, at the time the country was only 6 years old, the settler population was not very large, and Canada did not have an independent military. Yet, like the United States, it had ambitions of Western expansion. But the Red River Resistance of 1869 showed Canada that indigenous peoples were a force to be reckoned with. Right? And as we continue on in these history classes, going to continue to bring out all these different things. Right? We're going to bring out the Red River Resistance. Right? We're going to bring out the Trail of Tears. Right? What happened on that highway, I think it was Highway 16 over to British Columbia. We're going to continue to bring out slavery in Canada, right? We're going to bring out, the defenders of the land at the Gustavian Lake, right? We're going to bring out, all the slaves that froze to death and were hidden, you understand, in lakes and just left for dead, never having proper burials or any recognition of being in Canada. Like all these different dark things that have happened in Canada and Canada's history, that's what this history class is for. Right? We're going to read about all these different things. We're going to see videos and documentaries. We're going to go through books. We're going to get through all of Canada's history and how it impacts Blacks, Hispanics, and indigenous people. Right? So that Red River Resistance is something we're going to go into. And it was, again, something where indigenous people stood up and fought, right? They were standing up, they were fighting for their rights, and many times winning many wars over European colonizers. Indigenous people have won many wars. You understand? And the Bible speaks about the spirit of God. The Bible speaks about the spirit of indigenous people, right? If you are a Native American Indian, right, you identify as being indigenous, you are most likely from the tribe of Gad, according to the Bible. You know what I mean? And there's different prophecies regarding your spirit, regarding the indigenous people's spirit. Right, let's get that really quick. In Genesis 49, I believe. If you go to Genesis chapter 49 and verse 19, it says, Gad, a troop shall overcome him, but he shall overcome at the last. So when you look at the indigenous people, you got to understand that they're a defeated people. You know what I mean? They have a warrior spirit. The tribe of Gad are a people who are full of warriors. Full of warriors. And this prophecy in Genesis 49 says there's a time where the children of God would be overcome. You know what I mean? And when you look at indigenous people today, that's why you see a lot of them hanging their heads down. A lot of them walk around with their heads down because they're such a defeated people. You know what I mean? They're a group, they're a tribe of warriors who have lost a war. They're a tribe of warriors who have been defeated and overcome. And that's a hard thing to deal with. That's an extremely hard thing to deal with, and the Bible speaks about that. Not only does it say, God, a troop shall overcome him, but he shall overcome at the last. And you're going to see indigenous people rise up in these last days. Right? You're going to see where indigenous people overcome in the last, or in the end. The Native American Indians rise up and are ruling the planet Earth. Indigenous peoples are ruling the planet Earth as it was intended. You understand? We are a people full of so much integrity, so much compassion. You know what I mean? We don't have the spirit of Esau where we would just take. You know, just take everything and just destroy the earth. That's not the spirit of indigenous people. Indigenous people will stand up and defend people. They'll stand up and protect their loved ones. They'll protect the weak. They'll protect the widows. They'll protect the women and the children. And they'll do it with integrity. That's why they're going to overcome at the last. That's why they're going to rule in the end. All right. Let's keep going on this article. It says, then in the wake of the Cypress Hills massacre, a mass murder of Assiniboine peoples by American whiskey traders on June 1st in 1873, John A. MacDonald tasked the newly formed NWMP with marching west and containing indigenous resistance on the prairies so as to guard against possible American annexation. This part of the origin story of the NWMP/RCMP often gets mythologized as the Mounties acting benevolently and trying to protect indigenous peoples. But in reality, the first use of the force was part of Canada's process to Western colonization. MacDonald was attempting to secure access to the region and its resources with force if necessary, right? Because again, that's their spirit. That's the spirit of Esau. Just take, secure resources. That is what they do. And they will use the RCMP to take. They will use the RCMP to secure resources. They will use their military to secure resources. That is what Canada will do. And that is what Canada has done. And that's another reason history is so important. Right? There's a saying that history repeats itself. And that's a biblical thing. Right? It says in the book of Ecclesiastes, there's no new thing under the sun. The things that happened before will happen again. Because the people that are here on earth, they have the same spirit. Reincarnation is a real thing. The people that were living 2,000 years ago, they are living and alive today. Those spirits that were walking the earth 3,000 years ago, they're walking the earth today. They're living on the earth the same way they were living 3,000 years ago. The Edomites, Idumeans, the people of Esau, they are here again on this earth, and they are doing the same things they've always done. Things they did 2,000 years ago in Rome, right? The things they did 3,000 years ago, 4,000 years ago. These people continue to do the same things, right? You look at some of the things that went on in the Roman Empire, and you look at all the LGBTQ things going on in Rome 2,000 years ago. Those same things are happening today in Canada. The government is pushing for the exact same things to happen because that is who they are. That's their way of life. That's how they want to live. And so that's why you're going to see history repeat itself. Right? Keep going. It says RCMP and treaties. It says the Mounties also played roles in convincing indigenous nations to sign onto the number treaties on the prairies, being particularly influential in Treaty Number 7, negotiations in southern Alberta in 1877. Okay. Now, this is something that the police do. Not only the police, but our oppressor. Okay, this is the tactics of him, right? Because this is who he is. Let's share a video and get back into that article. I'm gonna read something really quick in the Bible. Let's share my screen. Let's go to the book of Psalms. I believe it's chapter 55. All right, and let's just read something about our oppressor. Those Psalms, I believe it's 55. Yep, and verse 20. Yeah, this is Psalms chapter 55 and verse 20. It says, verse 20 says, he hath put forth his hands against such as be at peace with him. Okay, this is what the Canadian government has done to Blacks, Hispanics, and Indigenous people here in Canada. He has put forth his hands against such as be at peace with him. You understand? Meaning, our oppressor has committed so much violence with a people that just want peace. Right? I'm going to share a video, and something that you're going to see and that you've always seen is when you see Indigenous people in Canada trying to defend their claims to land, their claims to rights over land, they always want peace. When Europeans first came to Canada, Indigenous people wanted peace. They were just trading fur and, you know what I mean? I think what were they trading? Trading fur or beaver tails and different things like that here in Canada because they just wanted peace. They didn't see any reason that Europeans coming over here would endanger or infringe on their way of life. Like I said, Canada has over 80% of its land unpopulated. The Indigenous people are not a greedy people. The Indigenous people are not running around trying to take everything from the country of Canada. They just say we want to be left alone. Here's our home. Leave our home alone. And verse 20 says, he hath put forth his hands against such as be at peace with him. Canadians have been very violent towards indigenous people. They've been very violent towards a people that want peace. It says, he hath broken his covenant. And that's what Canada has done towards indigenous people in Canada. They have broken every single covenant, every single treaty that they have made with indigenous people. Every single one they have broken. What is it? Some 170, over 170 peace treaties. We just read that John A. MacDonald sent the RCMP to help sign and negotiate peace treaties. That was in, what did it say? I think 1870 something or 1880 something. The Prime Minister of Canada sends the police, the RCMP, to help negotiate and sign peace treaties. Well, in 2024, over 200 years later, they have broken, Canada, they have broken every single peace treaty. And it's right here in the Bible. You want to understand your oppressor, you need to come to class in the I.S.U.P.K. You want to understand Europeans and who they are, come to class in the I.S.U.P.K. Because we're going to read through the Bible and we're going to read about who this man is, who these people are. We can tell you right now, there's no point in making a peace treaty with them. We were here another 100 years, Canada is going to break every single covenant. These Europeans will break every single covenant with us. It doesn't matter how much peace you want, they're going to break the covenant. The Bible says the wisdom of this world is foolishness to God. What Blacks, Hispanics, and indigenous people need is the wisdom of this Bible. If the leaders of natives and indigenous people in Canada understood that these people were going to break every covenant, there would be no point in having a peace treaty. It wouldn't matter the face that they send. It wouldn't matter if they send a man in a police uniform, if they send a man in a suit and tie. It wouldn't matter because the Bible says that he will break every covenant. Verse 21 says, the words of his mouth were smoother than butter. This is some wisdom, Black man, Hispanic man, indigenous man. The words of our oppressor are smoother than butter. He's smooth. He's slick. He's like a snake, like a serpent. What do they call it? A forked-tongued mouth. That is who our oppressor is. He's going to tell you something that sounds really good. The words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. War is in the heart of Esau. War is in the heart of these Russians, the Dutch, the Polish, the Romans, the Greeks. War is in the heart of the nation of Esau. That's something that we need to understand. It says his words were softer than oil, yet were they drawn swords. So everything he says might sound good, but he is always ready for war. That's the nation of Esau. Right? That's the wisdom of this Bible. That's the wisdom of God. That's the wisdom from the prophets, right? The messengers of the Lord. Right? Let's go back to that article, right, where we left off. And it said, the Mounties also played roles in convincing indigenous nations to sign on to the numbered treaties on the prairies, being particularly influential in Treaty 7 negotiations in southern Alberta. So this is what the RCMP was being used to do. All right, let's keep going. It says, afterwards, the police ensured there was no resistance as indigenous peoples relocated on the reserves to help clear the way for the construction of the Canadian Pacific Railway in 1885. So back in 1885, surprise, surprise, the RCMP was used to help clear indigenous people so that a railway could be built in Canada. They were used and they were sent out to negotiate in a peaceful way to ensure that a railway could get built in Canada in 1885. Let's share this video really quick, just to give some visuals to how the RCMP carries himself.
There's been many wrongs done in the past. And today we don't even trust the white man coming into this reservation. You cannot blame us for that. We don't want to be a Canadian citizen. We don't want to be American citizens. They told us a long time ago that we were North American Indians. And today we feel this way too. We feel this way because we think that this reservation is ours. And it does not belong to the white man. It's the only part we still have left.
The people of Akwesasne, which the white man calls the St. Regis Reservation, have lived on this land.
Right, and so something that you see how the RCMP carry themselves, right? You see them out there, you know, the Canadian government sends out men in suit and ties. You know what I mean? They're standing in a certain posture. They got RCMP kind of standing around the room against the walls, right? Just presenting themselves in a certain way. And as you saw in that little small clip, you see this brother saying, we don't want to be Canadians. We just want to be left alone. That's all we're asking for. All right, let's keep going.
And long before the two countries decided to draw a line between themselves. That line was not meant for Indians, and our right to cross it with our belongings, paying no duty, was confirmed in the Jay Treaty of 1794. The Canadian government never got around to making this treaty into law, and now they say we must pay duty on our groceries as we carry them to our houses, if we happen to cross their line. Many of us have to pay $1 to cross the bridge they built on our land. And they even build a custom house there too, without our consent. We went to Ottawa and talked with officials and got no answer. So we took action ourselves.
Notice, this is an Indian reserve. Any person who trespasses on Indian Reserve is guilty of an offense and is liable on a summary conviction to a fine not exceeding $50, or to an imprisonment for a term not exceeding 1 month, or to both fine and imprisonment. That's what it says, and that's what we're going to use. Their own medicine.
Right? You see what he says? He says, we're going to use our own medicine. Right? What does it say in Psalms? The words of his mouth were smoother than butter. And so this indigenous brother is saying, let's try using their tactics. Let's try speaking the way they speak. Right? Let's put this notice up like they love to put. You know how many fines people pay here in Canada? Don't park here, parking violation. Don't trespass here, trespassing violation. No soliciting here. So an indigenous man on his property, on his land, he says, let me put up a notice that they would put up. You know what I mean? And he was even being nice with it. He said, the fine shall not exceed $50. We'll be kind. We won't take all your money. And if you stay on our land, if you refuse to get off and stop trespassing, you'll be subject to being for imprisonment for a month. All right, he said, let's try using their own medicine. Let's see how this goes. Let's keep going.
On December 18, 1968, the usual heavy traffic between the two countries ground to a stop. We decided to block the bridge.
Oh, this is a national. Put it on all the cars. Give it to some of the other kids. Pass it around. Yeah. Well, put it on the inside. This car right here. Better yet, we can leave it up front. Hey, let's find out if we can get a scotch tape too, huh?
It was 8 above with a cold wind. Mike Mitchell had forgotten his gloves, and no one had thought about bringing scotch tape.
We only get some scotch tape. I didn't need that out now. All right, here's the first roadblock here. We're claiming this land back.
Then the police arrived.
Right away to be part of the St. Regis Indian Reserve. And therefore the people.
So this is the part that I wanted to get to, right? So he says, this is the part where the police arrive, okay? The police arrive, and these are the people that we grew up seeing on cartoons, seeing where, you know, they're protecting some old lady who just got her purse stolen. Right? The police are out arresting the bad guys. That's the image that they'd like you to believe of who they are and what they're here for. And so here we are with a person saying, this is my land. I don't want people trespassing on my land. I'm going to put up a notice to say, stay off my land. Right? He's trying to be peaceful.
People who are coming people here who will be trespassers.
Well, I can't allow the road to be blocked, understand? This is contrary to our laws.
Well, you understand also that.
So what does he say? He says, I can't allow this road to be blocked. Right? This is what the Canadian police say.
That this is part of the reserve.
No, I understand your
Under the Indian Act,
and
Section
also
31,
there is
that's
a law.
trespass.
quite all right.
These are our lands. We're just standing on it. We're having a meeting now, and we are Indians on our own land. And if anybody comes on that causes trouble, we'll charge them with trespass.
Well, that's all right, but now I'm asking you fellas to get off the roadway. You're blocking the road between two countries, and this we can't allow.
And you won't listen to our reasoning, yeah?
Well, I listen to your reason, but what can I do? This is the law. You can't block the road.
The law states
I know.
U.S. peace officers have to enforce this. Now, you're on Indian land, under the Section 31 of the Indian Act, specifically to a peace officer.
What about
Any
the code of
trespass?
blocking the road?
This is part of the reserve. No.
Then there was.
Well, I don't understand.
Okay, until they can prove it different. Tell us we're not on Indian land. Then you can come in and arrest who you want. But up until that time,
no, anybody interfering with us will have to arrest them. This is, I'm sorry.
Well, I'm afraid you're going to have a lot of people to arrest.
I suppose.
Oh, that's right. Just keep putting them there. We're going to stand here. We're going to figure ourselves. Let them take us.
Right, so this is the beginning to one of the many wars that have happened in Canada, on how some of these things start and escalate. The indigenous brother says, you're on our land. Police say, we're going to arrest you if you don't move. And the brother says, well, I'm not moving. I'm not getting off my land. And as you can imagine, how these different wars have escalated, you're going to see how the police carry themselves. You're going to see how the RCMP in Canada carries themselves. And they are not your friendly police officer that is just there to serve and protect. Right? Now, I'm not going to play all of this one. Like I said, in these history classes, we're going to go through many of the different quote-unquote land wars and different interactions that have happened. And for this class, I'm just going to play one. Okay, I'm going to play a small clip. Just so you can see some of the horrific things that the RCMP have done in Canada. Many of these things people have never seen or know about. I know we went through one a couple weeks ago. Bear with me 1 second. I'm just going to play a clip. Okay, a quick clip of something that the RCMP has done here in Canada.
RCMP that day. RCMP that day. And what you see in the film, in this film, their own eye in the sky, is you see the truth that, one, the occupants did not have any guns in their hands, that while they were driving down the road just after they were going to pick up the elders, that while they were driving down the road, they were trying to get water for the elders. This disabling device, which is really plastic explosives, which is nothing less than a very powerful landmine of itself, runs over the landmine, hits the landmine, and you see the truck blowing up. The whole front of the the truck hood blowing back. You then see the two occupants miraculously thrown out with no guns in their hands, thrown out by the impact of the explosion. They run and seek sanctuary by trying to swim across the lake.
Yeah, I think
And
you see
then
them in
you
the top
see
corner.
an APC come right forward and ram the truck. If they didn't kill them, if they didn't kill those unarmed occupants the first time, they were going to kill it with the APC. Then the next thing you see a dog jumping out of the back of the truck, and you see two sharpshooters right there alongside of the road, blasting the dog and killing the dog. That is where the first shots went out that day on September the 11th. That is what started the incident of September the 11th.
Okay.
Then you see two people going across the lake in the eye in the sky. They're swimming, and you see thousands or hundreds of rounds being hit on the water looking like missiles. You see two people surrendering when they come out of the lake, and you see the RCMP shooting at them before they tell them to put their hands up. One person gets shot.
No. It's a lot. Every time I watch it, that just kind of puts me in a mood. This is something that the RCMP has done. This is one example of what the RCMP has done in the name of the Canadian government, right? The authority that they've been given. And what we just saw is the RCMP planted mines during one of these land right claims. They plant mines, and indigenous brothers were going to go get some water for the people that were at this, you could call it protest. And they drive a car, they drive their truck over landmines that are planted. After they drive over the landmines, the RCMP, operating a military vehicle, they ram themselves into the truck, they shoot and they unalive a dog, which I damn near wanted to make that the title of this class, because how many times do you hear Europeans just scream and cry animal cruelty? Like, you would damn near think Europeans love animals and love dogs and cats more than their own child. They got so many rights for animals, right? You would think that they're first-class citizens, above everybody else. And these police just straight up gun down a dog, take out the dog, and they start shooting at these indigenous people who are running to a river after their truck just explodes going over a landmine. Now, we're going to get into that story. That was, it's called, I think, the Gustafson Lake standoff or something like that. That was over in British Columbia. And how that started, that was over basically a farmer who wanted his cattle to graze more of a certain part of the land or whatever, and they were extending their land onto where natives were holding and hosting their ceremonies. They were hosting a sun dance. And over land, just over land, so that a farmer's cattle could have more space, it leads to bombing or leads to planting landmines, which is just straight up terrorism on indigenous land. Like the things that the RCMP have done in Canada are absolutely disgusting. There is no value of your life. There is no care, no nothing for your life here in Canada as a Black, Indigenous, or Hispanic man. Sorry, let me play that one more time.
You then see the two occupants miraculously thrown out with no guns in their hands, thrown out by the impact of the explosion. They run and seek sanctuary by trying to swim across the lake.
Yeah, I think
And then you see
corner.
an APC come right forward and ram the truck. Mm-hmm. If they didn't kill him,
Like that is absolute insanity. That is absolute insanity on what they did to those natives in Canada over in British Columbia. You understand? And you know, they want you to buy into, you know, their grievances and their sorrows, and you know, all the things that happened to them are so important and we should feel bad for them. This happened on September 11th. Don't they always say over there in America, never forget 9/11? This happened on 9/11. On 9/11, Blacks, Indigenous, and Hispanic people should remember this day. They should remember when the RCMP and the Canadian government bombed our people. That's what we should remember on September 11th. These are the dates that are meaningful to us. And that's why these history classes are so important, because we can remember the history of our people. We can remember the history of the different things that we've been through, so that we can learn to move and how to operate here in this kingdom. Like, you got the RCMP full out bombing our people and then gunning them down with AR-15s and assault rifles and whatever it may be. Over what? Because it says in Obadiah chapter 1 and verse 4 or verse 5 that he is greedy. A normal person would stop taking once they had enough, but Esau, he will not stop. Doesn't matter what it's about. If it's going to help put some money in his pocket, he is going to take it. That is the spirit of Esau. And this is the terrorism that our people have to go through. Right? You wonder why in that first video, that man was saying how we don't trust the white man. We don't trust the white man. We don't want to be Canadian. We don't trust our oppressor. In the I.S.U.P.K, this is one of the most foundational things you could learn in getting in this school. that our oppressor is the devil that the Bible speaks of. He is a devil. Devil meaning deceiver. He is a liar. Right? That snake, that serpent from the beginning. It says in Psalms that his words were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. This is the spirit of Esau. This is who he is. You understand? He was a murderer from the beginning. That spirit is going to continue out on this earth until the Most High comes back and executes judgment. This is who he is. This is who the RCMP is. Like, they're out there in military vehicles, absolutely terrorizing the indigenous people. Like, you can see, if you watch closely, you see that vehicle, right, come and ram the truck after they bomb it. And then they somehow miraculously don't die in the explosion. They start running off, and the RCMP is gunning them down. You want to learn more about this story, you'd have to, go through the entire court case. You go through the whole court case, you're going to see all the information that is brought out. You know what I mean? That's how we're able to get things like this video, because the original story of what took place, was absolute nonsense. And all of that was planned from the RCMP. And you see things like that come out during the court case, where there's leaked footage of the RCMP speaking about a smear campaign and how we're going to put out disinformation amongst the indigenous peoples to make them look, or to make them look like, to make them be viewed in a certain light. And that's what the media was used for, has always been used for, right? And was used for during that time. But you see throughout the court cases, they brought different footage and, different evidence out of what really took place. And it's a very disgusting thing what the RCMP and the Canadian government did that day. A matter of fact, for time's sake, we still got a little time. I wonder if I could share a quick 5-minute video. Oh, yeah. Let me share this 5-minute video. It's a quick 5-minute video. We got some time. And it kind of gives a summary of what happened that day in Canada.
The disabled armored personnel. Gestapo standoff was a month-long siege in the southern interior of British Columbia in the summer of 1995. I think it was one of the most significant acts of armed resistance outside of Oka, 1990. To start with, Gustafson Lake, it's in the Caribou region of the south-central interior of British Columbia. It's known as Chirpatin by the Secwepemc.
Remember, this took place in 1995. I mean, what is this? This is 20 years ago. 20 years ago, this is what the RCMP is doing inside of Canada.
It's in Secwepemc territory. In 1989, some Secwepemc established a Sundance camp at Gustafson Lake, Chapatin, and they were holding an annual Sundance over the years. The land was claimed by an American rancher named Lyle James, and over the years their relationship kind of deteriorated. And in 1995, he wanted the Sundance camp evicted, moved off of that land so that his cattle could graze there. In June of 1995, there began to be some incidents with Lyle James and some of his cowboys coming into the Sundance camp to threaten and intimidate an elder and his family who were living at the camp. The New Democratic Party were the party in power in British Columbia at the time, and they had just suffered a number of corruption scandals. It was basically like an opportunity for them to show a strong law and order stance and to kind of crush this renegade native camp that had, sprung up. So they authorized a massive operation by the RCMP. It was the largest paramilitary operation carried out by the RCMP. And they eventually deployed about 450 heavily armed officers, mostly from emergency response teams. And they also got assistance from the Canadian Armed Forces, primarily in the form of 8 or 9 Bison armored personnel carriers with the driver and the commander. So one of the worst attacks carried out by the RCMP occurred on September 11th. Previous to this, they had negotiated with the defenders in the camp a no-shooting zone, which included a dirt road that allowed the defenders access to get drinking water, to bathe and whatnot. So on the morning of September 11th, the RCMP snuck into this area of the road that they had determined was a good point for an ambush, and they laid explosive charges into the dirt road. They hid one of the Bison armored personnel carriers a little ways down the road in the forest. And as the red pickup left the camp and was driving down this dirt road, and it went over the explosives that they laid, and they detonated the explosives, there was a massive explosion. It blew the car battery out of the engine compartment, and it was found about 150 feet away. There was a massive plume of smoke. Amazingly, the 2 people in the truck were uninjured, and they jumped out of the truck after the explosion and began running. And there was a dog with them in the truck as well, who also started running. After the explosion and the people had left the vehicle, the Bison APC came out, smashed into the vehicle. The police came out and started shooting at the people fleeing the truck. The police shot the dog as it was fleeing as well. And that began an hours-long firefight between some of the defenders and the police, who are now in these Bison armored personnel carriers. Wolverine was an elder in the camp. He engaged in a shootout with this APC, and it eventually became disabled. So they had to bring in a number of other APCs to rescue all the police who are in these armored vehicles and to extract them and to take out the disabled armored personnel carriers. So that was the biggest shooting incident. There was about 77,000 rounds were fired by the RCMP, and 1 woman was injured. She was shot in the arm. The siege eventually ended on September 17th. That's when the remaining defenders in the camp burned their weapons and proceeded to walk out. They were obviously arrested by the RCMP. There was a year-long trial that lasted from 1996 to 1997. It was during this trial that a lot of the RCMP strategy was really revealed. The RCMP had made a videotape of all their meetings and a lot of the activity they carried out for training purposes, because they had envisioned that this would be a very useful learning experience in how to deal with native standoffs of this nature. And one of the things that came out in the videotape that the RCMP produced themselves was statements from their main media liaison officer, Sergeant Montague, who stated,
"Did you find somebody today that can help us with a disinformation or smear campaign?"
Smear campaigns are special.
They released the criminal records of individuals they claimed were in the camp, as well as juveniles, which is illegal. But a lot of these individuals weren't in the camp.
Yeah, that's crazy too. You hear what the sergeant said, right? The Canadian RCMP sergeant said. He says, "Smear campaigns are our specialty." Put that back one more time.
Information or smear campaign?
Smear campaigns are special. Smear campaigns are special. Smear campaigns are special.
Campaign?
Smear campaigns are special.
Yeah, that's what that devil said. Smear campaigns are our specialty. You understand? They'd have you believe that, indigenous people are savages. You know what I mean? They'd have you believe that indigenous people, are some sick, disgusting people who are uncivilized, you know what I mean, who need all these different residential schools to learn how to, you know what I mean, live and operate in Canadian society. When really, that was a European man. You know, he came over here and he was bathing like once every 3 months. Europeans didn't know what didn't know what a shower was until they came over to, you know what I mean, the North Americas. But it's crazy the kinds of things that, you know, they do in this empire, and they'd have you believe. I mean, they'd have you believe that Blacks, Hispanics, and indigenous people, you know what I mean, are the greatest thugs and gang leaders. You know what I mean, the most notorious criminals, the most dangerous people. That we fill up the prison systems because, you know, we're the biggest drug dealers known to man and the biggest criminals known to man. You know what I mean? That is what he does. They have that smear campaign on lock. I mean, every time you turn on the TV, you just see Blacks, Hispanics, and indigenous people are always being portrayed in a certain light. But when you turn on the news and you go see, you know, who was just found with the largest drug bust in Canada, it's always some European. Largest drug bust in Canada. RCMP Toronto finds $5 million in cash and narcotics and this and that. And you always see the face of some European man. Sometimes you'll see the face of an Indian man or some Asian man. But the people that they love to lock up is the 19-year-old black man who was on the corner smoking weed. Because he's the danger and the criminal to society. I mean, it was such a common thing for blacks. I remember growing up, it was like you can't wear a hood when you walk outside. You wear a hood when you walk down the street, you're probably up to no good. You got a blue bandana on, you're probably up to no good. You know what I mean? They'd have rules inside the schools where you couldn't wear certain apparel as a black man. But if you're just some Becky inside the school system, yeah, no sweat. You can put the blue bandana on. But you're Bob or you're Timmy inside that school, yeah, no sweat. You can wear that red bandana. Black man does that. No, you got to take that off. Because we're viewed as the criminals on this earth. We're viewed as the savage on this earth. Right? So let's drop that. Let me grab a verse really quick. Let's jump into the Bible. Let's go to the book of Matthew. Let's see. So the book of Matthew, chapter 10. How do I make that bigger? Let's go to the book of Matthew, chapter 10 and verse 16. And it says, "Behold, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves." Right, this is something that Christ said to his disciples. You know, this is the wisdom and knowledge of the Bible. And this is something that we have to understand as a people. It says, "I sent you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves." right? And many times Christ spoke in parables. It actually says, Christ said that I speak in parables because it's only for you to understand. It's only for a select people to understand this knowledge and this wisdom and what Christ was speaking about. It's not for everybody. Right? You got over like 3 billion Christians on this earth, and they love to claim that they're the representations of God. Well, if there's so many of you that have this wisdom and this knowledge, you know, why did Christ say that I only speak to a select few? You understand? He said, the Bible says that, paraphrasing, wide is the gate. Well, how's that verse go? We can use another one where it said it's easier for a camel to get through the eye of a needle than for a man to enter the kingdom of God. Right? Why? Because there's only a select few people who are going to get it. There's only a select few people who are going to get into the kingdom and understand this wisdom and this knowledge. And so many times Christ spoke in parables. In this parable, he's saying, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. Right? Sheep in the midst of wolves. And when you understand what a sheep is and what a wolf is, you understand that one is prey and one is a predator. So when Christ said, I sent you as sheep in the midst of wolves, that meant that there's going to be people that are going to prey on you. You are the prey. There are predators around you that are trying to kill you, trying to unalive you, trying to destroy you. None of your Christian pastor is going to prepare you for this life. Your Christian pastor is too busy telling you to forgive everybody and love everybody and hug the people that are trying to eat you, trying to devour you. Doesn't matter that they enslaved you and, you know, lynched you and hung you off trees and fed you to pigs. These are the people that you should hug and love. That's what your Christian pastor is going to teach you. But the disciples of Christ, and being a follower of Christ, he said, I sent you as sheep in the midst of wolves. So he says, be ye therefore wise as serpents. Be wise as a serpent and harmless as a dove. It's telling you that you shouldn't be out here standing face to face with the RCMP with a rifle in your hand, ready to go to war with your oppressor. Why? Because he's going to plant some landmines and blow you up. You see what the RCMP is capable of doing? Do you see what Esau is capable of doing? Esau lost his birthright and he cried to his father and begged his father for a blessing. So he was blessed with the sword. He was blessed with the ability to make war and win wars. He was blessed with the ability to hunt and to kill, to unalive, and to be good at it. That is who Esau is. He has been blessed with the sword. And this man who's been blessed with the sword is trying to devour you. So you got to be wise as a serpent. You have to always be on guard. You have to always be on alert. Always be ready to strike, but do it in wisdom. Use the wisdom of this Bible and understand who it is that you're dealing with. Because these people that are around you, they're trying to devour you. He's straight up planting landmines like that. That is absolute insanity. You're sitting here just trying to defend some land that was given to you, and he's blowing you up with some C4. It's absolute insanity. These are people that you should never trust. These are people you should never leave around your kids. These are people that you should never call for help. You're having some problems at home with your wife, your spouse, your husband. Call the men of the Lord in the I.S.U.P.K. Don't call the RCMP. How many stories we've done where the RCMP is called and somebody ends up being unalived? Don't do that. You got to be wise out here. There's people that are trying to devour you. All right, let's keep going in on that article. See if there's a little more in there that we can talk about. Oh, so yeah, we were sharing a video. That's where I left off in that article. I was sharing a video. Well, let's see if I can play the end of that video. This is like a closing up to I think it was their thoughts on what took place.
Which claimed jurisdiction in Akwesasne.
We want to make it very clear that our feelings is very strong. Even Mr. Christian said, I understand how you feel. He says, the Indian Act is there for you because you're a minority. He says, you feel really bad about it. He says, I'm a minority group. I belong to the minority group myself. He says, I understand how you feel. And why doesn't he have a French Act if he's a minority? We have an Indian Act. We're a minority. That was a wrong thing for him to say. But if it's going to have to be that way, I think they should have an Indian for a minister for French affairs. In a system which you got now on this reservation, one half of this reservation legislates laws, and on this side the other. Even though we are cousins, we are brothers and sisters. We have to live like this. We don't like it. We don't want to live by it anymore. An Indian man here will marry an Indian woman from across the river, or vice versa. She has to sign off this reservation, and she has to sign a paper that says that she married a non-Indian. She gets a little check, and she sells her Indian. She's not an Indian anymore. But she married another Indian. Now, what kind of a system is that? I think that's white man's system.
Mr. McGill? Would you, going back to Ottawa or to Toronto, would you do anything personally to study the question of the border separating a nation or dividing a nation into two parts?
Mr. Chairman, I would report the kind of comments and questions and the feelings that have come out here. That's all I would do.
We don't get any direct answers from the authorities. Why was the bridge built according to a deal made between the St. Lawrence Seaway and the Indian Affairs before consulting with us? Why was more land expropriated than was needed? Why have we not yet been paid for damage to our farmlands and beaches?
But that Jay Treaty, that Treaty of Ken, which reaffirmed it, stated in there that the Indians were obliged to cease making wars on the white man. You see, Mr. McGillip, when that treaty was broken, that meant that we must again have been at war with the white man. Because when you break a treaty, this is what it signifies. And it goes to show you we are still at peace. We didn't break our side. We didn't go to war yet.
Yeah, so that was the end of that video. I'm gonna share these links. I'll share the links to some of these documentaries. If brothers and sisters want to check them out. Definitely good documentaries to check out. But this is just some of the history that's gone on in Canada. Okay, these are some of the things that the RCMP has done. Some of the things they continue to do. Can't name countless of acts that the RCMP has done to terrorize Blacks, Hispanics, and indigenous people here in Canada. Yeah, I mean, and that's just one of them. And it's always something that I find interesting in, you know, looking at the history of some of the things that happened in America to Blacks, Hispanics, and indigenous people. And as we continue to bring out these history classes in Canada, I always find it kind of interesting that the same things that go on in America, the same things that happen in Canada. The only difference is nobody knows about it in Canada. Yeah, I mean, they don't know about all the different bombings and riots and, you know, massacres that have taken place in Canada. But we're going to continue to bring it out. All right. I'm hitting that 2-hour mark. Our classes go from 5 till 7 every day, or 5 to 7 every Monday. All right. That's our history class. The water for tuning in. All right. If you ever got questions, bring your questions. Okay. I'm going to post some links in the chat just so you can see some of these different documentaries. Yeah, I mean, if you just want some more information on some of the things that have taken place. But yeah, with that, we're going to end tonight's history class. All right, the water for tuning in. Make sure you hit those sign-in links and sign-out links if you want to be a part of the school. All right, and with that, I'm going to say shalom.
Baby, no listen to no fake news, them can't. Could do all it out and them never fake news. Notice I just be a bad bitch, I get forward from with you. But the one you have be good girl, them lazy. She never did a features, R-rated. Never did a features, half naked. Me never did a piggy R-rated things halfway, that's why me give R-ratings. She never did a features, half naked. Never did a features, R-rated. Me never did a piggy R-rated things halfway, that's why me give R-ratings. I know every girl a white material. I know every girl forget the juice in my seed bag. I know every girl me trust to cook my food, nor boil my tea, not tea, but put the milk in the cereal. Me like a catty when medieval. When we wash for cook for clean and no fuss. When she hear me get a new girl, I know that me mean when me say me fight me demons. Multiple wife legally, no illegal. Yeah, straight, me go crazy. I know every catty can be my first lady. I know every press plus, but he don't pay for plus. Tatiana no fit in and no mercy. When me say, oh luxury dolly fi nurse baby, a trouble when luxury dolly turn old lady. So big up every girl we don't lazy. Your body big, but why your mommy donate it? R-rated. Never did a fi dress half naked. Me never did a fi give R-rated things halfway, that's why me give R-ratings. She never did a fi dress half naked. Never did a fi dress R-rated. Me never did a fi give R-rated things halfway, that's why me give R-ratings. She now wait pan money for reach her and donation. She make reach her man donation. 100